Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of the Not Your Average Investor Show. This week, we are talking about how to de-risk the rental property investing experience. We got some non-obvious advice, some non-obvious insights coming from a couple of the superstars here inside the walls of the JWB Real Estate Capital office. I'm your host, Pablo Gonzalez. Greg is not here today, but we have a 2-for-1. We got double.
Double trouble.
We got double trouble. We've got senior portfolio manager?
Specialist.
Oh,
Almost senior.
Cheers.
All right.
6 years.
All right. 6 years with JWB, managing portfolios. Caitlin Kitchens, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And I think that, Sam, you've been on here before, right?
No.
You've never been on here before?
No. I can't believe you waited this long to bring me onto the show.
From the front lines, a regular in the chat. We call her Mashburn. Sam Mashburn. Account executive?
Account exec.
What do you call it? All right. Cool.
Promotion. I gotta be here for another year.
I obviously know no titles here in this business. Flat organization. As you know, we have a little tradition around here, ladies. You know what it's called?
The roll.
Let's go. We got our leadoff hitter batting first today. Do you know who that is?
It looks like John Henning.
It's John Henning. We got the early bird in the house coming in second. You know who he is?
Dean Curry.
Dean Curry saying good afternoon from the home of the Ohio State Buckeyes National Championship. He is from Columbus, Ohio. Dean.
You Dean, but like not Ohio State.
We got the Maven from the mountains of Denver.
Leslie Wilson.
That's right. That's your girl. We got Layla Powell in the house, teammate. Chris Lee from Fernandina Beach. We got our regulars, Gary and Rosalind and Riley from Marietta, California. Do you know what we do? We regard them. We regard them. The R's. We got the ringmaster in the house. You know the ringmaster? Drew Barnhill, of course. World famous composer from Long Island, New York. John Williams. He's new nickname to the show. We got Le Monsieur. Do you know who Le Monsieur is?
Reggie.
From Reggie Fonse. Good to have you. We got the Mountain Man on the house.
Hey, Billy Green.
Billy Green from the -2 degrees mountains of Colorado. That's -2 degrees Fahrenheit. Big difference.
It's getting there here in Jacksonville.
We get Ed Lowry in the house. Freezing in Jacksonville. Ed just became my friend on LinkedIn. Ed,
yeah,
good looking fella. I finally, yeah, we got a link. We're linked. Ed LinkedIn Lowry. All right, I like our favorite smile from the Pacific Northwest. Pamela Myers. We got teammate Fritz Brown in the house.
Hi, Fritz.
Who else? We got the MVP. Everybody knows the MVP. MVP. Lee Bishop, the legend in the flesh. He is here. He's here, y'all. We got Allie King, another legend. Anya from JWB, a bunch of teammates in the house. Anya Sanchez. We got Big Papa in the house. We love it when he calls it Big Papa. You know who he is? The co-founder of the co-founder, Jay Cohen, Greg's dad. Yeah. Good to have you there. Who else we got in here? Susan Parker from Chili Rally. Maybe a little bit of snow. Susan, good to have you. Christian Mendoza, another teammate. Y'all must be real popular in these walls. Very popular. Rashawn.
She works with us.
De la Valette. I'm messing this up, Rashawn.
Just Rashawn.
Rashawn.
Sean, Tierra, Shannon, Val.
Look at everybody.
De la Valati. Rashawn De la Valati.
Yeah, I think you got it.
I gotta get it right. All right, we got Michelle John checking in from Jacksonville. Tierra T's in the house checking in. Jeff Pettyjohn from Missouri. I gotta get this going faster. Shannon Lillard, operations coordinator. You got a lot of Val Dawson's in the house.
Yeah.
Glenn Schenken from Massachusetts. Glenn is a attendee of the summit. Glenn, good to see you. We got the fairy godmother in the house. You know the fairy godmother? Of course, everybody knows Jen Filson. Impossible. You cannot ignore Jennifer Filson. Rick Kiley Holden in the house. Misty and Troy Johnson. They were the 9th most attended shows last year. Misty and Troy Johnson. They gotta make it. Nadeem dropped in the group chat that he's been to every single show last year. So we got to redo the thing and see what happens.
Route, like a not your average investor.
You really do. Yeah.
Yes. Tim Kitchens, I assume that.
That's
Hey, good to have you. Oh, like marmalade, lavalade. All right, Rashawn the lavalade. I like it. Marmalade. Kate's in the house. Oh, El Gran Amigo is in the house. Bill Shields with the Buenos Tardes Amigos de Duba. Good to have you, Bill Shields. We got the Shaw man in the house. You know the Shaw man?
Nadeem
Shaw. All right, cool. So enough of these shenanigans. Let's get to the matter at hand. But first, we have to say the summit. What do y'all know about the summit coming up?
Oh, it's the day after my birthday.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
really neat.
So we already have a ton of people have signed up. I'm a portfolio manager, so I will be doing in-person performance reviews with our clients. So already got a few, but have a few spots available.
Yeah.
And Saturday, a lovely tour of our
February 28th
Yeah.
and March 1st,
Yeah.
the community comes together. There's a maximum of 100 people coming. We have purposely made it small. We have less than 30 tickets available, is what I have heard.
That's awesome.
And here's the secret. We really only announce it on the show and to like not your average show subscribers.
Yeah.
It has yet to go out to the full clientele list. So Greg was like, hey, buddy, let them know this is not fake urgency. We're like one email away from this thing selling out. So go to jwbsummit.com if you want to come. All the information is there on like hotels to book, all the good stuff. But like the really important thing is to just register, save your seat if you're coming, because I think we are within 7 to 14 days of this thing selling out. Really, one email push away and maybe a couple phone calls before it sells out. So jwbsummit.com. We want to see you. It is the culmination of this community. Investors only. If you are a turnkey rental property investor, come meet the other not your average investors, right? Like fight the gravity of like the ignoramus state of non-real estate investors.
Yeah.
Right.
A team. Like I think that's the biggest sell right here, right? Like come meet Pablo.
That's the biggest.
Come meet
That's the
Kate.
biggest.
Yes.
Come
Come
meet
meet
y'all.
Marcel.
Yeah. Come meet y'all.
It's,
Come meet y'all.
yeah, it's gonna be an amazing event. I actually was super jealous that I didn't get to go to it last year. I was like a week
Last year was
away.
a good one. Last year was a good
I
one.
a week away. I was freshly hired.
Well, it's good news. You're there. You're there this year. All right. Let's get into the topic du jour, ladies. You know what that means?
Yeah,
It's
topic of the day.
the topic of the day. It's
Yeah.
French.
Yeah.
Reggie knows. Reggie knows. Reggie knows. Reggie knows. Oh, Aaron O'Neill just showed up. To the lights, Aaron O'Neill. Good to see you. Vernon Campbell just said hello from Stone Mountain. We got people still checking in here while we're over here. Okay, cool. So let's get into it. De-risking rentals.
Yeah.
We've talked a little bit with both of you pre-show of just kind of like how clients and prospects are coming in thinking about risk a little bit different. Sam, you were telling me from the front end of like calls that you're getting. How are you seeing that conversation change as far as like what people are valuing these days?
Yeah. So originally when we first started kind of going through the show and deciding how we were gonna, evolve it throughout the process of the show, Kate was mentioning that there are people who are already clients who bought several years ago. And of course I have investors that I get on the phone with all the time who have bought several years ago. And so the market has changed substantially in the last, let's call it 5 years. And so things that were a priority back at the beginning of the purchase, back 5, 10 years ago, they can't be the priority anymore because the market doesn't support those same types of priorities.
Yeah.
And I think it's everywhere. I don't think it's just Jacksonville.
Yeah.
But certainly here in Jacksonville. And obviously that's what we want to focus on. So it was easy to make decisions to get into real estate investment when interest rates were low and sale prices were low. And you're like, oh, this is great. This is cash flowing huge. And so I think when people come to me, we have to talk through what the difference is in the market now than it was a couple of years ago and why real estate investment still makes sense for a long-term hold product. And so I know Kate and I are on the same page about that. Obviously, I know you've invested into that kind of thinking. I know a lot of our listeners and watchers have, invested into that kind of thinking, but ultimately that's where the conversation goes is like, is it, and maybe this is a question, or maybe I'm derailing this whole show. It could go either way.
Keep derailing.
It could go either way. But like, is it riskier to hold on to something long-term, or is it riskier to get into an investment that you think is more short-term or performs for you immediately?
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the genesis of this is when you came to us and you're like, I think people are really starting to see the value in the hold was your words.
Yeah.
And then you had kind of like, you have an interpretation of that kind of like Sam coming at it from folks new to the decision and you talking to people that are very familiar with the decision. How are you sensing this?
Yeah, so I mean, part of my role here is I'm doing annual performance reviews where we're actually pulling up returns and we're going over, people who maybe invested in 2013 to 2020 to who purchased last year. And so everyone's got to have a little bit of mindset, but I would say the 2020, like Sam mentioned, you had so many people getting in because it was a very easy decision. You're like, boom, cash flow, all of these things make sense. Whereas now that might be the expectation. So the last time they purchased was 5 years ago, and those numbers look a little bit different. So you're going over the long-term buy and hold with these clients. Really, one thing that's great about these calls is we're highlighting the growth and the change coming to downtown, why the hold makes sense. People may look and say, X city, I'm going to have cash flow. Well, that's really great. You may have some cash flow now, but if you stay in Jacksonville, you're going to have cash flow and you're going to have that appreciation where you're necessarily not going to get that into another market. And, we really hype when we're going over your returns that about 72% of your return on investment comes from appreciation alone. And that's why it's so important to invest in a market that has that.
Totally. I'm so glad you brought that up. The Pac-Man principle, right? Like when you lay out the 5 profit centers on a pie chart and you look at what makes up the majority of the wealth creation, there's one that looks like a Pac-Man and everything else looks like the mouth of the Pac-Man. That's home price appreciation. If we're talking about it from like a risk level, right? Like there's a little bit of education here. So I'm essentially hearing more educated buyers are coming into the market because there is less short-term gain, fancy short-term gain, and more long-term thinking. You also mentioned something along the lines of like, I'll just kick it back to you there. Are people coming with more of a long-term thinking mindset than before?
I think it definitely depends. So you mentioned kind of like a savvier, educated investor. And I think a well-educated investor understands the value of the appreciation more than maybe a less savvy or inexperienced investor. I think when you come to the table and you're looking into real estate investment, you can't take appreciation out of the equation because it's a real asset that it's going to do that hopefully in the right market anyway. So I think that when I'm having those types of conversations, I appreciate an investor who comes to the table already going, I'm excited about the growth and the appreciation in the asset.
Yeah.
I just had a thought and I'm going to try to get back to it.
Yeah.
But I think it might be just going on. I feel like risk is like the umbrella of our show today, right? So I think so I'll speak from my perspective, and I'm not a real estate investor yet, but you are, so maybe you can kind of tune in. And we've got tons of people watching who are, so maybe this is, a question to the audience, but isn't it, for me, it would be risky to get a lot of income coming in right away immediately because cash burns a hole in my pocket. So and maybe that's not how everybody's looking at this investment, but like for me, that is an immediate risk to me, as opposed to something that I can't necessarily touch until I'm ready to use it in a fashion that I have a plan for. I mean, cash flow could potentially offset, income, or it can supplement other things in that way, or maybe it's funding, an additional acquisition or decreasing your amortization schedule. So there are lots of ways to utilize that immediate cash flow. But for me, it would be risky. It would be risky.
Yeah, that makes sense. The idea of somebody buying something because they need it right now, it's a very different mentality than someone that's like, hey, I want to put this away, right? Like my mentality when I came into this space was, I'm not counting on any of the cash flow that's coming in.
Right.
I'm really like, this is my long-term bucket. This is, I consider this no different than my 401k, except it has way more benefits than a 401k, versus somebody that might be coming to the table thinking, oh, you know what? I just heard that this is what's up, but I know that, because I have this cash flow, that can start paying this like car loan that I have. And now I'm going to think, I'm just going to count on that. And maybe something changes, right? Like compression changes or vacancy happens. And now you're more exposed. I could also see it as someone that's like, yeah, I'm coming into this, but like, dude, all I need to do is get in on one of these properties because I can flip it in a year or 2 years. That gives you a much riskier, mindset.
And I just want to point out, I think that, we mentioned being a savvy investor coming to the team. What's great about JWB is that if you're watching this show and you're not already an investor and maybe you don't feel like you're savvy, maybe you're just starting fresh, you don't have to be. That's what's so great about Sam is she's going to get you on that call and she's going to kind of walk you through all of these points so you feel really good and you feel really comfortable before you make that ultimate decision.
Yeah. And you bring up the magic word team, right? Like we talk a lot on the show about vertical integration, right? So first of all, let's just distill the lesson there. The first lesson that I'm taking away is you de-risk rental property investing by having a long-term mindset.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And that's the big difference of folks that kind of like rush in 2020, 2021, they were thinking of this, like, how can I get this appreciation real quick? How can I get this cash in my pocket right now?
Yeah.
Like you're now having more educated conversations with folks with longer term mindset, which sounds to me like they're starting to really value the team. And this is what we talk about as far as vertical integration. Am I warm here, Sam?
Yeah, 100%. So to piggyback off what I feel like Caitlin was kind of alluding to and to what you're saying too, I think the only way that you can really de-risk that long-term investment is with having the right team. And of course, there are lots of things that, you want to do when you're underwriting a team. And I know you guys talk about this all the time, but at the end of the day, what do you want? Where do you find the most value? And is it going to be in a team that just offers you this turnkey product and you're like, oh, great, I have a house and now what do I do with it? Or is it with, just a property management company and you go, okay, well, I'll find this house, but I've got to walk through a bunch of different realtors and a bunch of different showings. And okay, now that I've got that, I'll just find the right property management company. Oh, but what happens when, there's a maintenance issue? Or what happens when I have to turn the property and I have to get a new tenant in place? Oh, wait, I forgot about the tenant in the first place. Like, wait a minute, how am I going to get a tenant? Or do I de-risk that entire process by finding a team that not only is an expert in the market, but also is an expert in all of those little nuanced things that come with owning a rental property? Yeah. And to me, that is the biggest risk mitigator.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
there is danger, fumbles in the handoffs.
Right?
Right? So if you are dealing with multiple parties that need to make one thing work, then every single one of those like joints is an opportunity for a ligament tear.
Yes.
Right. To continue that. Right. So the vertical integration piece of JWB being the company that owns the entire outcome from land acquisition to current state of the property when you buy it, to like current performance of the property when you buy it with the cash flow, to future performance of the property when you buy it, as in like maintenance and vacancy and stuff like that, to performance of your portfolio and how your plan fits in. That's a major de-risk, which also makes me think about, like, this is something that I wanted to really like dig at, right? Because it's one thing to say a single point of contact, but you were bringing something up when we were preparing for this thing, which is you're also de-risking salesperson got mad.
Yeah.
Because you talk about how kind of like the sales team has to set you up for success. You want to tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, Sam's whole job is to sell homes.
Yeah.
But it's not just to sell a home. She could easily do that with her eyes closed. I hear her on the phones every day.
Yeah.
Sweet.
But it's more than just that, because at the end of the day, if she is not setting this client up for success, she's ultimately setting our team up for failure. And we all work together to ensure that we're providing the best service to our clients. And beyond that is growing their portfolio and helping them to reach their goals. So at the end of the day, if Sam sells someone's a home just to sell it and they're not going to be a good fit and we can't perform for them at the level they expected, she's only going to hurt herself, because we are a team, we collaborate. And ultimately our goal as a portfolio manager is to get that client back with Sam to help them grow their portfolio.
I mean, she hurts herself and she hurts you, right? Because your goal is to get people to meet their portfolio needs. So you got to look her in the eye if she's not meeting her goals because you set her you set her up wrong, right? Like, tell me about that. Tell me kind of like incentivization, right? Kind of like when you think like, where do you make your living, right? Like what are you incentivized to do?
Yeah, 100%. So, I mean, obviously, like the most obvious answer is incentivized to sell homes. But at the end of the day, like, I have to step foot in the office with all of my teammates. So if I can't look at Kate in the eye and go, and she goes, hey, this particular person, I don't know, was a great fit, they're not coming back to you, they don't want to grow, it ends up shooting me in the foot. But to the point of like how the team works together, and we were talking about kind of how, like yours cogs in a wheel, or is that what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where everybody is so interconnected. Like if I onboard the wrong type of person, everything, to your point about like joints breaking, like everything gets either delayed or pushed back, or there's a lack of trust somewhere. Something is out of joint, because there's not one part of the entirety of JWB property management and real estate capital that isn't incentivized to perform for the other teammate or the other department. So I've been talking through it with our property management on boards and with our new investors. Like the trust is it has to be bought into at the onset of the acquisition, because if you don't believe in the way that we're acquiring land, then you're not going to believe in the way that we're underwriting tenants. And if you don't believe in the way that we're underwriting tenants, then you're not going to believe in the way that I can show you all of the numbers. If you don't believe in the way that our maintenance and construction team is going to troubleshoot issues for you and take care of your property and manage it as well, if not better than you would, then you're not going to believe my service team whenever they come to you and say we have an issue, or like we're working our best to make sure that these vacancies get decreased.
Yeah.
So there's just not one part of our team that isn't incentivized to do right by the other.
And I mean, it doesn't even just end there, because, we're talking about the on-site and Sam setting us up for success. But then it also comes to a position where clients are looking to add and grow their portfolio. And it's our job on the front end to be the portfolio manager and say, let's go through capital. Let's look at your goals. How are you going to be investing? Because then once I put that person with Sam, if they're not really ready to go and they're set up for success, I'm only hurting her.
Right.
We have a common goal as two departments together of our conversions, ensuring, if they're set on the call, what percentage is going to convert? And we want to make sure we're also not wasting the client's time. If we're talking to them on the front end and they say, I have X amount of capital, I'm looking to get cash flow, I can just go ahead and say, hey, based off what we have right now, that might not be what you need.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and come up with a plan. So maybe in about 6 months to a year, we can get you with Sam.
I love it. And I want to steer into a particular topic right now, but to recap on de-risking, right? Like number one is you de-risk by having a long-term mindset when it comes to rental properties. That one is on the customer.
Right.
Then as the customer is having this long-term mindset and they are figuring out kind of like what's best for them, they start to get to de-risk by understanding that the fewer handoffs there are in the process of acquiring a property and like holding on to it for a long time, the less risk there is for something to fall within the cracks, something to fall back on them who's not an expert and have to make a bad decision.
Right. Yeah, 100%.
Third, and this is what you all are hitting on really nicely right now, is aligned incentives, right? So it's not just like, hey, I have one phone number to call. It is how is everybody's incentive aligned in a way that you all feel that you need each other in order to serve the client the best. And those incentives are aligned in the best, like in the best interest of the client is the big questions to be asking of how you can de-risk.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, to that point too, we were talking about this morning in our TMM about how we all kind of have an investor's eyes when we go into the ways that we make decisions about the properties too. So this morning particularly, we were talking about turns and construction team. And there are certain things that make sense for your return on investment to be able to do in a turn. And there are other things that don't make sense to be able to do in a turn. But you don't know that unless you are looking through the eyes of an investor.
Yep.
And so when you said the word like we're in alignment, I'm thinking about all of the conversations that I have where that is a true benefit of working with a company like JWB who actively invests here in the city of Jacksonville, where our portfolio, it matters. Like the decisions that we're making on our personal portfolio are the same types of decisions that we're making on our investors' portfolio.
Yeah.
And to be in alignment with a team who goes into your acquisition and your portfolio and your investment like that, it's a major difference between someone who's just trying to make you a sale.
100%. I mean, you won't probably find any turnkey company that is going over annual performance reviews. So
No.
I try to tell our clients all the time, we are truly doing this in the best interest of you. We could easily just do these things and make a profit and turn them over, but we're reviewing your returns on an annual basis to ensure that we are exactly in line with what we projected when you purchased this property. And kind of going back to portfolio objectives and keeping, that line of pace, one of the biggest things Sam's doing on the front end is, what's your why? Why are you getting in real estate? Why, are you looking into Jacksonville? What's the long-term goal? We as portfolio managers and client relations coordinator, when we're talking to you on a monthly basis, a quarterly basis, an annual basis, we're keeping up with that plan that you've put in place. Oh, you want to retire in 10 years and move to Costa Rica? Well, that's going to be a property a year. And so we're going to follow up with you every year and say, this was your goal. Remember that place in Costa Rica you want to live in? And I think it's also okay that we know life changes and we're understandable. Just communicate. We're here to help you get to that end goal. And sometimes we have to change it up a little bit, but in the long run, it's really to get you to that place.
Really well said. And that adds a whole nother wrinkle of nuance to de-risking around alignment, right? Nuance number one is, how is the team aligned in order to meet long-term objectives with each other, right? Because you get measured on repeat sales, you get measured on repeat sales, right? Like, it's where stuff is coming from. So you got to set expectations up right for the long term. Second, that you mentioned previous to this is the company that you're investing with aligned with you on their investments? Right?
Yes.
You just mentioned you can look through the eyes of an investor, because JWB Real Estate Capital itself owns 400 rental properties right alongside all these other properties. They are currently developing the downtown of the city that they believe in. Like, they are investing more than anybody here individually, right? Like, into the same asset class with the same belief. And then third is that incentivization aligned around your why? Right? Like, that is a way more powerful kind of like alignment of incentives. And for you, for your job, the why needs to match an objective of how to reach that why, which is portfolio growth, long-term, like objective reaching, right? Like, there is a real like scorecard out there that isn't just like, what is my personal net worth? It's like, am I reaching that point in my life that I've envisioned, at the time that I envisioned it, with the quality of life that I wanted?
Exactly.
Which makes me think of
good segue.
Another part of risk is, you're not going to meet that objective if you're not able to buy those properties on time.
Right. 100%.
Yeah. Tell me more about that. Who wants to talk about assembly line of homes? Kate.
Kate does.
Yeah.
Yes. So essentially, like I said, you have your why and you have your plan.
Yeah.
So one of the things, we use Salesforce to track all of our clients, portfolios and what their plan is. We have a buying plan conversation and we're putting what your long-term goals are. We're putting a follow-up date. So I'm going to go based off of that date to reach out to you and to grow that portfolio, to be able to add to it. And ultimately, if we're not holding you accountable for those goals, then, I'm not doing my job here. And that's why we want you to consistently add. And that's where, you kind of start to play into, well, what is it going to take to get you on the phone with Sam? And that's where she really gets to step in and be the rock star and help grow that portfolio.
Yeah. And that's not a productive conversation if all of a sudden the market turns and there's no inventory of homes because you're working with somebody else. You want to talk about kind of like bandwidth and ability to do that?
Yeah. So I was actually just talking to an investor about it the other day. They were like, well, what happens if I want to keep growing? And I was like, great, you found the right team. I was like, how do I make this so obvious? Well, what happens when your available inventory is dwindled? And I'm like, our available inventory doesn't dwindle.
Yeah. How do you answer that question then? How does it not dwindle?
Yeah. So because of the vertical integration and the way that we built our business model, we have a new construction team who is literally working to continue to build new construction properties, which again is in alignment with like our goals as a business to make sure that we don't have inventory that is just dwindling. So yeah, I literally was on the phone the other day with somebody who was like, well, I want to keep growing. Like, is that a possibility with you guys? And I was like, oh my gosh, yes. So thank you so much for asking. But yeah, the bandwidth of the team, I think it's so beautiful to see. And I think it's a very unique differentiator for a turnkey provider that we've been able to grow really deep into the city as opposed to really wide around the country. And so there are a lot of investors that ask me as well, like when we get on the phone, well, are you in any other markets? And I'm like, honestly, like if I sit back and pull away for a little bit and I think about what we've been able to do here in Jacksonville, it would be almost irreplicable.
You got it right.
Did I get
Yeah,
it?
irreplicable.
No, I did. No, I did not.
Yeah, you got it right. You got it right.
Just say it with confidence.
Okay, all right, yeah.
Nobody
Nobody's questioning it. It would be so hard to replicate in another market. Not only is no other market like Jacksonville, but also the way just our like time here in Jacksonville alone, we can't just go pick up and go into another market and have that.
Yeah.
So the fact that we've been able to really dig our roots into Jacksonville tells me a couple of things. Not only are we going to be the experts and have the most insight when it comes to the city, but it also works. And that's the other thing that I try to tell people. It's usually the second call that I get to have with them. It's can you please like take a look at what this all really means? Don't just take it at face value on my presentation on your computer screen. Like, look at what this means for this team, for your investment, for your potential portfolio here with us. Like, when I show you the consolidated inventory of what we're investing in and why, look at what this looks like. It looks like this is a company that has built themselves on the city of Jacksonville. If it didn't make sense, we would have skedaddled.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, we
totally.
wouldn't have 1,800 investors, and we wouldn't have the ability to continue to build, and we wouldn't have the ability to dig our roots deep into the city of Jacksonville. There's no way. If it didn't work, we would have found somewhere else that it did.
You wouldn't have the pricing power that you have.
100%.
You wouldn't have the access to the contractor base and the know-how that you have.
The
100%.
relationships that we've been able to
The
build.
relationships that you're able to build and
100%.
leverage.
Yeah, the presence, we talk about that all the time. Like, think about what this means. I show people a map of Jacksonville and all of our consolidated inventory.
Yeah.
And I go through like what this means to me. First of
It's
all,
like
it
a
works.
swarm, right?
It's a swarm. It is an actual, and you can see the geopins, they're like stacked on top.
Yeah.
I'm like, think about what this means. It means that it works. It means that we have an impact here. People know who we are.
Yeah.
We had a meeting with our acquisitions team, and they were like, people come to us about like deals that they find because they know who JWB is.
Yeah.
Renters are seeking out properties that JWB manages it because
Of your reputation.
Of our reputation, because they know who we are.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful thing to be able to sit back and work for and endorse a company that is so positive and has made such a huge impact in the community. And it speaks to the ability of our bandwidth here.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, not even just kind of pigging back off the inventory conversation. You know, not only do we have inventory available, we have inventory that's 90% rented and it's affordable. The average purchase price in Jacksonville is about $360,000, or our inventory is going to be about $230 to $250 on average.
Yeah.
So just like Sam said, we've been able to be here and establish ourselves for almost 20 years, that we have those resources to be able to provide, to not only impact just us here that live here, but our clients and the residents too.
Probably de-risks your career trajectory and economic stability for yourself if you're working with a company that has been doing it for 19 years and it's like, and it's the number one in the city, right?
Yeah.
Like it's for you as well, right?
The other thing, and I might be jumping the gun into, you know, the next part of our conversation, but like, if we have the available inventory and people want to come to the table to de-risk their initial investment with multiple properties, it makes sense to work with a partner that has that ability.
Yeah.
So, and I just saw another investor in the chat that was like, I'm looking to buy multiple properties in Jacksonville. Great. I've got multiple properties available for you right now because of the bandwidth of JWB.
Let's jump into that in a second. I want to just
I knew I was jumping the gun.
Yeah, no.
Say that.
It's not. It's literally what's next on my run of show here. But I want to like take the meat off the bone of that last little conversation we just had, because we kind of brought up two more de-risking considerations.
Yeah.
Time and depth in market.
Yeah.
Is
Experience,
is a de-risk, right? Like just like time in the market and like how deep into it you are, you know, it creates this like absolute advantage of local knowledge, relationships, pricing power, like all these kinds of things that is really, really hard to replicate if you're in like a bunch of markets.
100%.
That's something that absolutely de-risks the long-term kind of like hold of rentals. Yeah. And then the other thing is access to inventory de-risks rentals, you know, de-risk your ability to like buy and hold and grow your portfolio. And the nuance that I wanted to add there is that, you know, as I have come to understand the space more and more, it feels like even if we're really just going to segment, right? I mean, there's the people that are like fake turnkey that are just like, no, I got you a property and then I'm going to refer you to a property manager. Yeah. Right. Then there's the folks that are like, no, we're bringing you a performing asset, right? Yeah. And like, there's kind of like two types of those. Mm-hmm. There's the folks that are what you call build to rent,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Which are essentially kind of like taking big plots of land and they're developing like a whole neighborhood,
Yeah.
kind of like on the outskirts of a city. And the way that looks, it's like sometimes there's going to be a bunch of inventory, and then sometimes there's going to be no inventory because there's a lot of enablement that has to happen to make all that happen. And then there's the folks that are really, really good at the Burr method and then turning that to somebody else, right? They can find a property, they can remodel it, and they can bring it to market. That is also peaks and valleys
100%.
because when interest rates go up or pricing is
Yeah.
out of control or the market's too hot,
Yep.
they don't have that. Something that unique that JWB has figured out is how to bring build to rent homes in on like infill city lots. And they've spent the last 15 years buying every vacant city lot that's close to downtown so that they're able to acquire and remodel and do that when that's available. And that brings like variety and that brings price point and that brings its own thing. And they can also bring, one home at a time per lot as needed in order to match existing demand. And that to me is like the magic of like, okay, well, if I'm somebody that's looking to set my clock to building my portfolio so I can go sailing around the world in 16 years, then I don't need to worry about the access to like houses that are able to like remodeled or the access to like these large plots of lands on the outskirts of a city to bring forth these like pre-designed neighborhoods when JWB just has this assembly line of like equal widgets that they're bringing to all within 15 minutes drive of downtown.
Right.
It's a completely different way of solving for that inventory thing, which de-risks the equation.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of Jacksonville and, how we invest is we are in, if you look at the map Sam was referring to, there are certainly pockets where
Pull it up.
are very heavily invested in.
Yeah.
But Jacksonville is the largest city landmass wise in the entire United States. So people will talk to me like, oh, I want to diversify my portfolio. Well, you're able to do that in Jacksonville. You have different areas of Jacksonville. And if we're investing there, it's because that investment makes sense.
Yep.
We have new construction, we have the renovation.
Yep.
So yes, certainly agree with that entire statement.
Now let's go back to your hot start there.
Oh, my segue. It was so good. I'm not gonna be able to do it again.
No. That was good. I'll set you up here. You were talking about Kathy Baumberger's in the chat saying that she wants to buy multiple properties in Jacksonville and like she's in Colorado and she's got some mobile home stuff and stuff like that, right? And you were talking about the ability to de-risk the rental property experience by buying multiple properties right off the bat, which most people are not able to offer.
Yeah.
Go.
Oh, all right. Take it right.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we were talking about in preparation for the show is how to de-risk your portfolio.
Yeah.
So we talked through some of the different ways to acquire. And right away, this was one of the things that kind of took me a while to wrap my head around. And Kate was like, no, this is so obvious. And I was like, this is what 6 years looks like. This is what 1 year looks like.
Yeah.
But being able to de-risk your portfolio right off the bat with multiple properties it's such a huge it was a huge revelation for me.
Yeah.
And so in our organic conversation, preparing for the show, we were talking through like what that allows your portfolio to do. And so if you have multiple portfolios, multiple properties in your portfolio, it's like taking 3 different eggs in 3 different baskets and caring about your life. And one of the baskets drops, but you still got 2 remaining eggs. You can still carry on. You still have breakfast the next day. But if you put all of your eggs, all 3 eggs in one basket and that basket drops, your eggs are toast. Not literally.
Not
on toast. But you're done. Like you don't get breakfast tomorrow. So there is a risk mitigation in the idea of multiple properties within your portfolio. Not to mention all of the other benefits that come with having multiple properties in your portfolio, which is, potential increased cash flow.
Yeah.
One helps to offset the other in cost, vacancy, and 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 times your equity growth at the onset.
Yep, totally.
Yeah.
Kate, you kind of look at it as like multifamily versus short-term rentals to a certain extent. You want to tell me a little bit about how that fits in?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I did want to add something really quick to Sam's point is that, one of the biggest things in real estate is it's always going to ebb and flow. You're never going to have just 10 perfect years. You're gonna have down years. And when you have multiple properties, like she was alluding to, if you have one property that's that down year, we knew it was coming. We prepare for this, you know, you had the resident there for 4 years, that's the average. And now you have a vacancy. Well, you have 2 other properties. So it's not as painful. But with single family, you know, that's really our bread and butter. That's our hedgehog. That's what we're going to hit on. We've had a lot of clients recently wanting to get into the multifamily, you know, universe of their portfolio, and JWB manages multifamilies. We have that within our business, but those are not homes that we are selling. This is a different type of investor that has a different long-term plan. With multifamily, you know, there's a lot of things you're not gonna get that you would have with a single family. So you're gonna have additional costs on a monthly basis because you're paying for general utilities, lawn care. Jacksonville as a city historically has not been zoned for multifamily. So we are not zoned to build multifamily properties on lots, which is why JWB really focuses on single family. It's not the biggest why, but that's a huge hurdle.
It's a big part of it.
And then, you know, the main thing we talk about, if you're looking at the Pac-Man, is that appreciation. Multifamilies are not going to appreciate at the same rate that a single family property is.
Okay, so if I'm breaking this back out into the risk discussion, right? Sam brought up the idea of like one way to de-risk rentals is by entering already with like a portfolio mindset, right? Like it's what I did, right? Like I knew that I was buying one property, but I knew that I was going to do whatever I could to get to 3 properties as quickly as possible in order to kind of like de-risk the ability to, you know, like one cost being offset by like the cash flow from the other properties and stuff like that. So working with a vertically integrated provider that's able to bring multiple properties at the same time and as much inventory as you need allows you to de-risk like single family in a very, very unique way, no matter how you're purchasing. And then you bring up another thing, and we've got 6 questions. So we're going to get to the questions in a second. So I just want to make sure that I see your questions. We're going to get to it. But Kate, what you brought up is the idea that in multifamily, people come to multifamily thinking that they are de-risking it because of the multiple revenue streams. But what you don't de-risk in multifamily is the cost.
Exactly.
Right. So like your costs are all concentrated on one thing. If you have one cost there, it's gonna hit there. Whereas in single family, if you're buying multiples, bundles as we call it, then you are diversifying the income stream and the cost centers as well. And the likelihood that you have a catastrophic event in all 3 is much less than like a catastrophic event in one multifamily. And therefore that also has an element of de-risk as well.
And additionally, on top of that, you know, with multifamily, we track everything here. We're all about the numbers, looking at the history of it and reviewing it as a team. The biggest impact to your returns is going to be vacancy. And with multifamily, we have found that they are sitting on the market about double the amount of time that a single family property will. And then I wanted to add to the conversation of, you know, we understand that you're gonna, you know, reduce the risk of your portfolio by having many, and we encourage that. So we have our elite program. So once you get to 5 properties under our management, you have 9% management fees. Once you get to 10, you have 8%. And then we actually have sales incentives right now for if you pick up 3 properties at a time. So we are really focused on helping clients to do that.
Love it. Kathy Baumberger is saying, how do we get in contact with somebody there? Kathy, super easy. All you have to do is, I don't have the number memorized, but
I do.
I do, yeah.
677-6777. Press option 1.
904. Option 1 is 904-677. 6777. That's option 1. Option 2?
There's no option 2.
Chat with JWB.com and you can pick a, yeah. If you go to chatwithjwb.com, you can go straight into a calendar and book a time with T or you or
T's the first
with T as well. Otherwise, you know, Kathy, if you want to just drop your email in the chat, I'm sure that the team will just follow up with your email, right? We make this as easy as possible.
100%.
So you're good to go. And all right, cool. I actually came to your door and it was locked.
Yes, our office is close to the general public.
Office is close to the general public. Correct. The last thing I wanted to hit on, and then we'll go to questions. Is there one more thing I wanted to hit? No, I think we'll go to questions. Oh, yes. Talk to me about debt versus cash flow and non-negotiables.
Oh, yeah. So I think it's about, topic of the conversation is risk, right? So is it riskier to have cash flow or is it riskier to have debt? And I think it's really about your strategy. And a lot of people ask me that, you know, well, how do you know? And at the end of the day, it's about your goals. So for me, it's less risky. And I walk them through, because I can only speak about, my personal experience, and then, what we know as far as data and insight from the team and our experience and our numbers. But for me, it's more risky to invest everything or a large chunk of capital into one property that could be potentially cash flowing, rather than mitigate my risk with multiple properties, take on some debt, allow my team that I have vigorously sought out and kind of underwritten through a series of 4 or less phone calls, and made sure that, this is the type of team that can help me manage these properties and manage my long-term investment, and allow the asset to do what it does, perform in a market that is appreciating, that's going to continue to grow, allow my principal to come down so that my risk ends up decreasing over an extended period of time. And so to me, that's another place where we're able to diversify that risk.
Yeah.
So
Well, that was well said.
Yeah. I think that speaks to the point of you're working with an expert that understands not just like the asset and whatnot, but understands kind of like how to create a plan for someone
Yeah.
and how to like right size it, right?
Yeah.
Like if people, like what I hear in your story is, in what you just talked about, is you're not just looking to sell somebody a house.
No.
You're looking to sell somebody an outcome
Yeah.
based on what they're trying to do.
100%, yeah.
Right?
And that's the other thing. And so
Yeah.
I feel like if there are new investors who are coming to us that are watching the show, the biggest takeaway from my conversations would be identify what your plan is and your why.
Yeah.
Why do you want to get into real estate at all? What's your why with real estate investment? If it is cash flow, then great. Let's walk through the strategies where you can be cash flowing utilizing JWB's assets. If it's not, if it's a long-term hold and it's appreciation because you see the value in allowing somebody else to pay down your debt to really get in and maximize your wealth accumulation, then great. Let's walk through those types of
Yeah.
strategies. If your strategy is to mitigate your risk and grow your portfolio to, whatever that looks like, 5, 10, 55 properties, fantastic. And you guys say it all the time. And originally when I started watching the show a year ago, I was like, for real, guys, but it's so true. Like the biggest thing that matters when it comes to real estate investment, I know you can speak to this,
Yeah.
is who do you have in your corner?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, if you have somebody in your corner who is thinking the way that you want, that you would be thinking, who is providing you with an asset that's performing, whose business model depends on the performance of that asset, whose team is so interconnected that we're all incentivized to be making those types of decisions that protect your experience, protect your residents' experience, and protect your bottom line, what other risk are you taking on?
Mm-hmm.
Well said.
Yeah.
Well said. I mean, you said that I can speak to this directly.
Yeah.
I can speak to it directly in the sense that, like, if you invest in rental properties, people that you don't know are going to live in a house,
Yeah.
right? That they don't own.
Yep.
And people are all unique,
Yes.
right? Like nobody
Yes.
is the same.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that means that there's going to be unique scenarios, right? There's going to be stuff that happens when people are living in a home.
Sure.
And that means that inevitably over a 20-year hold, 30-year hold, sometimes it's in your first year, right? Like something is going to happen when you're going to be like, okay, well, all right. I know I signed up for this because we talked about this at length, like, but, should I, do I want to ever do this again? Do I want to kind of like cash out right now?
Right.
Do I not? And those are generally very intense conversations with your partner.
Yeah.
Right? Like, or with yourself, right?
Yeah,
Or whatever you're doing. And the one thing that you can hang your hat on is, yeah, this just happened, but I'm not really having to do anything to resolve it outside of cutting the check for it.
Yeah.
And B, yes, they prepped me for this. I was told this was going to happen. And they've also told me that over a 30-year hold, this is the exception, not the rule. And this is the outcome I'm trying to reach. And if I want to reach this outcome, I got to stay in this game in order to get there, right? Like, or else I got to go find another plan to reach this outcome.
Yeah.
I mean, those are conversations I have on a daily basis. I mean, I'm that point of contact when the things get hard, we're having that conversation and we're reviewing those returns. And you could take something here and, you've owned it for 10 years. And like you said, it might be year 1, it might be year 10. is going to come at some point in time. But why would you leave a market and a company that you know has your back and performs for you to go to something that you don't know for sure?
Yep, 100%. Right. So, I mean, the big thing that I'm taking here is if we're talking in terms of risk, you de-risk rental property investing by having an objective-based mindset, not a monetary, not a, any other mindset other than like you have a specific objective that you're trying to achieve with your rental property strategy. And, if you do that, now you're setting yourself up to success because it allows you to weather the hard times. And if you have an objective-based mindset, it probably means that you're working with a team that presented you that objective and they're holding themselves aligned to that.
100%.
Yeah. I think it's how you come into any type of investment decision, regardless
100%.
of real estate or, whatever else, Bitcoin or stock market or whatever. You have to come in with what's the end goal here and how is this tool a means to an end? And if I'm looking to get into real estate investment because this is my means to an end, then I have to look at it like, what is the plan for me to get to that end goal? And then do I have a team that's in alignment with me there who's helping me to get to that end goal?
Yeah.
And
100%.
regardless of what investment it is, that I think to your point, it has to be viewed objectively. It can't be viewed like, and we have those conversations all the time. Like, are you sitting down with somebody else and, asking them about, well, is the door painted black? No, like, get out of here.
It's not an objective.
No, it's not.
that's not an objective-based conversation.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. Is that really going to get you to where you want to be? Is that going to prevent you from where you want to be?
Yeah, correct. And like you bring up Bitcoin, right? Like I don't know anybody that's investing in Bitcoin based on an objective. Like I think they're just investing on greed and FOMO, right? Like it's like, and that's the thing that you're just like, whatever, dude. You want to buy in on that? Buy in on that. That's fine. Yeah. It's just a very different mindset, right? Like it's not that like they can be like hold on for dear life, like forever. But like, what is the goal? Like, what is your actual, can anybody selling you Bitcoin actually tell you that, if in 20 years your kid's going to go to college, your Bitcoin is going to do this for you at that point?
And
I don't know.
I don't know. I would rather,
it's not an objective.
To the point of risk, like that's a lot more risky than me going, hey, let's look at your portfolio at this moment in time. I can project based on all of the data that my team has been able to collect over the last 19 years because, hey, guess what? I'm not hiring out to third-party vendors. I am the property management. I am the leasing. I am the maintenance. I am the construction. I am the service team. Like I've got all of that to present to you. And 20 years from now, this is what I project on a conservative level based on what we know about the city.
That's it.
This is what your property can do for you. Is this what you're looking for?
Yeah. And I think with having a great team,
sign on the line that is dotted.
That's it. That's it.
With having real estate, I feel like if you're looking at any investment, this is going to be probably the one that you can feel a little bit more emotional towards.
Yes.
It can get very emotional owning real estate, but that's where having such a wonderful team that is fully vertically integrated is going to be that support system for you.
Yep, 100%. All right, let's jump through some questions.
Yeah, so
Ed Lowry, LinkedIn Lowry. Smash. Obviously, you've done well with us, but how do you determine which properties to show prospective investors? Do you provide everything that is in an inventory, or is it based on the original investor's goals?
So good. Thanks so much for asking, Ed. Well, because Ed was actually my very first investor here with JWB. So Ed holds a very dear and special place in my heart. But I showed you properties that I thought were in alignment with your goals and your resources, Ed. And you were like, you know what? I've been holding out on you, Sam. What we're actually going to do is we're going to go with these properties. So to your point, there is certainly the conversation. And obviously, that's where we need the buy-in of the investors and the trust on the front end is like, let me be the expert here. I know how all of my properties are performing. I see the numbers on a regular basis. I'm the one who's constantly underwriting them, knowing how they're going to perform. And ultimately, at the end of the day, if you tell me that you're looking for consistent returns at, 10% and you're looking for net neutrality and you're looking for maximum growth, that's what I'm going to present to you.
Yep.
I'm going to present you with that type of property. Sometimes there's multiple properties that can perform like that. Sometimes there's some that are better options there. So that really just depends on the conversation. But yeah, to Ed's point, he saw a lot of the inventory. So it's not like we're trying to withhold anything or not be transparent with you. But if we're having open and honest communication with one another, then hopefully you've revealed to me what your goal is, what your strategies are, and then you allow me and my team, who's already put together the available inventory, to really be the expert for you and allow me to pick out what you're looking for that is in alignment with that. Because to our point about objectivity,
Yep.
then you take the personality out of it. You take the personal decisions, the black door, the white shutters, the driveway or non-driveway, and you would not believe how many conversations are like, well, what about a car garage? And I'm like, we build to suit I heard you talking about it this morning. We build to suit the neighborhood and the marketability, because guess what? We're the leasing team.
Yep.
We keep track of what properties are leasing and which ones are not. So it doesn't matter if it has a garage, because this area doesn't need a garage, and you're paying for maintenance on a garage. That doesn't matter in this neighborhood.
Exactly.
So yeah, it instills objectivity into it.
Yeah. I love that it's objectivity, because at the end of the day, if you're trying to help somebody meet an objective, then options aren't necessarily a good thing. Options can be confusing.
Yes.
Options add friction to the process,
Yeah,
right? Like
100%,
what you are essentially buying into when you're working with a vertically integrated provider is the
expertise.
It's give me, like, own the outcome for me. Don't push it back on me.
Yeah.
The first time I walked into Whole Foods, I was like, I thought there was only 3 kinds of milk. Now I gotta spend half an hour thinking about what kind of milk I want to buy. Right? That's not necessarily a good experience, right?
Right.
So the idea that, like, there can be more inventory than you are showing, but at the end of the day, that's not what you're here to do. You're here to say, hey, this is going to build you a plan that's going to hit these goals, and these properties all suit. However many properties there are, it really doesn't make a difference.
Right.
Exactly.
All right, cool.
100%.
Love it. Great question.
Yep.
LinkedIn Lowry. That also reminds me of John Williams asking here, can a portfolio be designed for cash flow now and long-term growth?
Yeah, absolutely.
What does that look like?
For sure. So I talked a lot. You can go.
Oh, I mean, to me, the biggest thing is if you're looking to cash flow now is how much capital you have to bring and how you're looking to purchase. So it just really depends on what you as the client have to bring on the front end.
Yeah.
All your properties are going to have both of those things in the end, but if you're looking to cash flow immediately, it's certainly going to be capital in the way you're looking.
Correct. It can be financial engineered based on, like, the amount of capital being brought to the table, right? Like, if you're going to buy 5 properties at 20% down right now, that's not going to be cash flow and growth. That's going to be growth.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
But people like Ken Moline, who took out a jumbo reverse mortgage
Right.
on his home,
Yeah.
bought one straight up in cash,
Yep.
then used the cash flow from that one and then the refinancing for that one
100%.
to buy multiple other properties.
Yeah.
He created a cash flow plus growth account overnight, right? So it's just a matter of, like, pushing through what you got and what your objective is.
Strategy.
Right.
Exactly.
So John Williams, the answer is yes.
Yes. Short answer, yes.
MVP Lee says, Sam, if you think you should wait to invest, it is much easier to invest now and let the property pay for itself than when you need benefits at 60, you have it. So that's not a question.
No,
Just
he's
telling
the MVP.
MVP is essentially saying, yeah.
I need some more capital, Lee. If you're offering, totally.
Oh, he's telling you to invest. I got you.
Credit.
Yeah. Lee
Lee
is essentially saying it's better to invest in real estate and wait than wait to invest in real estate.
100%.
Right, which
Yeah,
we all know.
Yeah.
Which we all know. NL is saying our 3 properties in the JWB portfolio are vacant after tenants left. This is concerning. What can JWB do? As portfolio manager, how do you help with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have our pod structure that's built out. So you have an IOC that's designated that should be giving weekly rental updates. So lean into what those conversations are and the advice that they're bringing to the table. Being the market experts, we're looking at comps, we're looking at the leads that showings come in, the feedback. So I would say take those weekly conversations, take the advice of the IOC, because they're really going to be the expert there.
Got it. Sandra Morales says, being vertically integrated, would it mean that as a company, JWB might be more exposed to market turbulence? Is that accurate? What would be the advantage or challenge of an investor working with JWB?
Oh, that's a great
It's a
question.
good one. Let's get into it.
I would say that the reason we've been so successful, we have gone through the turbulence. We actually started kind of when the real estate market was down
Yeah.
by being vertically integrated. We've said that word so many times today. Jumbling together, we're able to kind of shift our business model. So while we have the turnkey side of the business, where we're selling homes, you also have the property management side of the business where no matter what market it is, you're going to need to have homes for people to live in. So people are always going to be looking to rent. And then if we ever need to shift gears, we'll actually sell some of our properties retail. We have a retail side of our business. We're one of the #1 providers of affordable homes in Jacksonville. So by having that, it actually makes you safer and your investment safer.
Yep, 100%. Do you have anything to add to that? Because I got something to add to that.
Oh, no, take it away.
So Sandra, I'm like a business nerd, right? And I read Jim Collins books and I read whatever Silicon Valley stuff is going on out there. To me, what I find really, really interesting about JWB is that they are 4 partners. And one of those partners alone, who is one of the founders, Alex Ifagas, his job is to think 10 years ahead.
Yeah.
And the level of planning that happens at JWB is uncommon,
Yeah.
right? Like we saw it happen first with COVID when everybody freaked out. They immediately announced what they say. They said, nobody's losing their job. We have more than a year's cash flow in reserve. We're going to make it through this because the real estate market rebounds, right? Like
100%.
that was a very different message than given to every other real estate company here locally. And then if we continue that trend, when interest rates all rose, there was a handful of like big time real estate companies here that folded because they weren't planning ahead, right? So the idea of JWB being more at risk based on being in one market, it depends on like more at risk for what, right? Like,
so that was my immediate reaction.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
And you can always plan around the risk that you are exposed to with strategic enough planning. The annual strategic planning that happens at JWB that starts in October and goes through December, and you create like a full business plan that then gets disseminated to everybody else. That's very, very real on a yearly basis. The idea that this company has a R&D department that is essentially like 10% of its activity that is constantly testing things. That's how they were able to bring to market, invent the build to rent inside city lots, right? Which put them in the front page of the Wall Street Journal, completely innovative. That's how they've been able to like test the market with container apartments, which at the end of the day was an L, but created a whole bunch of publicity and another thing. The fact that they're able to like take a little bit and experiment with short-term rentals to see if it makes sense to give to investors. The fact that they're able to like invest in 20 city blocks of downtown Jacksonville and start developing downtown Jacksonville, right? Like they've JWB continues to like tweak and tamper with like 10% of their activity, not with their clients' money, with 10% of their own resources to continue to figure out what the next 10 years, 20-year thing is going to be. And that creates different business model that diversifies JWB, such as land enablement that right now land development that right now it's a real revenue source. That's a new one. Retail sales, which is a new one that's become a significant part of the business. This is how property management became part of the business. This is how all this stuff happens, right? So like, yes, if you are concentrated in one market and you don't have your head on a swivel, you are more at risk. But if you are an excellent operator, it gives you unique advantages to be able to plan 10 years, 20 years out. And JWB as a company who's been around for 19 years has proven that they've been able to like get to what the next thing is going to be before everybody else.
Right. And I hope that really makes our clients feel good and comfortable. And the biggest thing they take away is we as a company are willing to try things and to change, and we're always going to try it on ourselves first. And if we are not doing something or we change something, it's because we have tested this on our personal portfolio and we are bringing it to you as the client.
Correct. So the answer, Sandra, is maybe there's more risk in being in one market. It just so happens that Jacksonville has been like the darling of markets, and it continues to be because it's still underpriced and fastest growing median income in Florida, and like the second hottest job market in the Wall Street Journal.
Keep going.
And that only keeps getting better. But more importantly, it's like, are you betting on an operator that plans to be there long term? And you know, when I look at Alex and Greg and the two Adams, and what they say is like, our goal here is to build a city so awesome that our kids, when they graduate college, choose to move here. And then hearing the mayor come on the show a couple of weeks ago and say, we're one of the few cities in America that's experiencing a brain gain. You know, like, I think that's real, man. And that's been a 10-year vision, and that's really, really happening. So,
really cool.
You know,
and you brought up the downtown just briefly, and I know it's been on multiple shows, and you know, I don't even want to step on your toes because everything you just said was gold, but but ultimately, like, I think that not like the vertical integration is what insulates us from some of that market turbulence, I think.
Yeah,
Just like you
totally.
said, being able to kind of shift, like to
Yeah.
your point, being able to shift and pull different levers accordingly. But that development in the downtown, I really think just continues to solidify like why Jacksonville
Yeah.
makes sense. And that's what I try to harp on in the second call that I have with an investor, where we're really meeting face to face and we really get to kind of interview one another, if you will, for a long-term partnership.
Yeah.
That is the biggest piece of the puzzle to me, is that if Jacksonville didn't make sense, if it wasn't the right move to continue to stay here, then why would we invest in Jacksonville the way that we have?
Yeah.
Why would we continue to
Yeah.
vertically integrate ourselves in a way that allows us to be flexible and insulated and pull different levers?
Yep.
Why would we invest millions of dollars into a city that wasn't going to return to not only solidify our own personal portfolio, but all of our investors' personal portfolios as well? And I talked through the statistics, and we don't need to get into it now, but I talked through the statistics about like why that decision was made.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it only benefits a return.
Mhm.
It only benefits a return. And so for us, I think that's huge. If the team that you're working with is not reinvesting in the market that you're investing in,
Mhm.
you've got the wrong team. And I'm mic drop. Like, I'm just gonna say it. You've got the wrong team.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So she asked it from like, is JWB at risk? But ask yourself as an investor, how at risk are you
Yeah.
Yeah.
working with someone that might be here for the next 5 years and be gone later?
Right.
100%.
You know, like
Yeah,
when you're still going to be owning that property.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
we have been here for 19 years, and with our downtown investment, like we've committed to the
Yeah.
next 30 years of being here in Jack, just like Shotgun.
Just
So-
like shotgun. Just like shotgun.
For us, part of the question was like, what are the advantages of working with a team?
Oh, okay.
JWB?
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
it.
That's it. They're not going like
Anywhere.
as long as you own a property in Jacksonville, they will be here.
100%.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Kinda. Yeah, cool. Good answer. Good answer. We've gone way over time.
Yes.
Of
We're
course we did.
yappers.
But I challenged both of you to give me like a final take that you
Yes.
want to end the show on. Before we get to your final take,
Oh no, let Kate go first.
I will.
I'm ready.
I will. I know Kate's ready. Before we get to the final take, I just want to remind everybody two things, two announcements. One, we're doing a special client-only webinar on Thursday. There is, for the longest time, you've only been able to use a HELOC to buy rental properties, but you could only use a HELOC from your own primary residence.
Yeah, no.
Right now, they've made it available to be able to use a HELOC from your rental properties to buy more rental properties. And we did a show on it a while back, but we're doing a very specific client-only webinar on Thursday. If you're a client and you want to go to that, Joanna's going to put the link in the chat that you can register. So if you want to join us for that, or you already saw the show, you love hanging out with us. I know that's you, Lee. I know that's you, Denny, and Billy, and everybody else. I know that you want to come hang out. I'd love for you to come hang out. But this is going to be an informational session on like the HELOC piece. And I don't take it for granted, guys. I do appreciate that you come. And then second is, if you want to really come hang out IRL, the summit, February 28th, March 1st, jwbsummit.com. There's less than 30 tickets left. It's going to sell out very likely in the next 10 days. So if you're really thinking about it, buy yourself a ticket. And I hope to hang out with you and do some karaoke with you at some point.
Same.
Yes. All right, Kate, final takeaway.
My final takeaway is, if we're talking about taking the risk out of real estate, it's trusting your team.
Mm.
Yeah.
I always say we're the service department, but more than just being kind of a service advisor, it's a partnership. You know, our role here and your role as the client is to work together to get you to that why and that end goal. So it's very important. And I want our clients to know, like, if we're reaching out, you know, for those rental updates with your homes on the market, take those calls. If your client relations coordinator is calling you, have that conversation with them, book those annual performance reviews, sign your 2024 PMA. Everything we're doing is to be a great partnership and to help you. So help us help you by trusting your team.
Love that. Sam, come up with something on the fly.
Okay, on the fly. Good. Well, that's good. That's my middle name. So I think just to piggyback off of that, trusting the team and then making sure that the team has the bandwidth to support that type of trust that you're instilling in them. And I hate to use that word bandwidth again because I feel well, it's like a buzzword, right? So if you are going to trust the team, make sure that they can do everything that you want them to do. Make sure that they are in alignment with your decisions, your experience. Make sure that they have the experience in the market. Make sure that they are doing what they said that they were going to do. Make sure they're holding themselves accountable. Make sure that if they say that they're fully vertically integrated, like there are pieces of the puzzle that touch other pieces of the puzzle. Make sure that they can provide you with available inventory not on the fly, but with available inventory to continue to mitigate your risk and grow your portfolio. Make sure that when they say that they're the leading market expert, that they are the leading market expert. Make sure that they have an impact in the city that they say that they do. Make sure they're reinvesting in the city that you're investing in. And at the end of the day, like, I know we're all sitting here endorsing JWB, but like, that is JWB.
That's what they do.
That's JWB.
Sam on the fly. You got
Sam on
it.
the fly.
Sam on the fly. Sam on the fly. Final recap. If you are trying to de-risk rental property investing, number one, you have to have a long-term mentality. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
Number two, the more that you work with a vertically integrated team, because the more joints there are in the infrastructure of who supports your buy and hold decision, the more likely it is for joints to break. Number three, look for aligned incentives. We talked about incentives within the team itself, right? Like, are they like accountable to each other for buy and hold goals? We talked about incentives. Is the provider investing alongside of you in the same types of properties in the same city as you, so that you're aligned on the market? And we talked about incentives in, man, I'm trying to keep track of it all. Yeah. And we talked about incentives. It was the team. It was the market incentives.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, there was
man.
the third one.
There was the third one that was really, really good.
The debt versus the cash flow.
Yeah, no. Hold on. First, I'll come back to it. Then we talked about how do you de-risk is by buying multiple properties at once is a way to de-risk, right? Because unlike multifamily, you are diversifying your income streams, but you're also diversifying your costs. That is another one. You de-risk by objective-based investing,
100%,
right? Because then you don't pull out too early. You have like your why in mind. Incentives around your why. That is the third incentive. All right, that's all I got for y'all.
So good. So good.
All right, I just want to say we had over 100 people on today. It's just I never.
You should invite us back.
We should invite you back. You were clearly the cool kids.
We were.
And I just never take for granted that folks are still on. We still have over like 70 people on. Never take for granted that you take an hour and 40, like an hour and 10 minutes out of the middle of your workday. We couldn't do it without you. Want to see you at the summit so that we can all hang out. And one last piece of advice before you leave here today. Do you know what that is?
Don't be average.
Don't be average.